Hi, I'm Emily Muhlstein, and this is a public hearing presentation for Amendment 19 to the Coastal Migratory Pelagic Fisheries Management Plan, and it deals with sale and permit provisions. The Gulf and South Atlantic Councils manage coastal migratory pelagics jointly, and this amendment addresses some concerns that fishermen have been having. The first is that the sale of recreationally caught fish causes the commercial quota to be harvested quicker, and it also might make harvest data inaccurate. And the second concern is that an increased participation in the commercial fishery might negatively affect current permit holders. The councils are considering addressing these problems through three separate actions. The first action addresses sale provisions for king and Spanish mackerel. The second action addresses the elimination of inactive commercial king mackerel permits. And the third action addresses income requirements for commercial coastal migratory pelagic permits. So starting with action 1, currently fishermen are allowed to sell king and Spanish mackerel under the recreational bag limit without a federal permit. That can happen unless there's a commercial closure in effect. Now there's concern that the commercial quota is harvested faster because of this, and also that fish might be double counted as a part of the commercial quota and also a part of the recreational allocation. So the council's considering a couple of different alternatives. The first is the no action alternative. The second alternative would prohibit the sale of recreationally caught king and Spanish mackerel, with the exception of 4 hire trips in which the vessel holds the appropriate federal commercial permits. There's 2 options here. We could do that for the South Atlantic jurisdiction or for the Gulf jurisdiction. The third alternative would prohibit the sale of recreationally caught Spanish and king mackerel. And the first option would be in the South Atlantic jurisdiction, or the current preferred option by both the South Atlantic and Gulf Councils would be to prohibit that sale of recreationally caught fish in the Gulf jurisdiction only. The fourth alternative would prohibit the sale of recreationally caught king and Spanish mackerel with the exception of state permitted or licensed fishing tournaments. So currently, the South Atlantic and Gulf preferred option would do that for the South Atlantic jurisdiction, and there's also an option of doing that in the Gulf jurisdiction. Moving to Action 2, the elimination of inactive king mackerel permits. So a commercial king mackerel permit is valid in both Gulf and South Atlantic jurisdictions right now. There's been a moratorium on those permits since 1998, and there's approximately 1,500 valid or renewable permits right now. There's worry that the increasingly restrictive regulations on other species is going to cause effort shifting into the king mackerel fishery because there's a number of permits that are renewed but are not actively fished. We also have to note that using landings to establish some sort of participation criteria is difficult because there's bias due to the different seasons, the different zones, and the different bag limits associated with that mackerel fishery. So the councils are considering a number of different alternatives. The first alternative is the no action alternative, and that is the current Gulf preferred alternative. Alternative 2 would be to consider permits to be active and renewable if landings are at least, and there's a number of different options here, 500 pounds from the years 2002 to 2011, 1,000 pounds from the years 2002 to 2011, or 500 pounds in at least 1 year between that time frame, or 1,000 pounds in at least 1 year between that same time frame as well. The third alternative would be to allow for the transfer of inactive permits only to immediate family members or to vessels that are owned by the same entity. And again, to consider permits to be active, we're going to use those same 4 options as outlined in Alternative 3. And then the fourth alternative, which is the South Atlantic's preferred alternative, would allow for a 2-for-1 permit reduction. So this table will show what sort of reduction in permits would happen if we followed the different options that are presented for Alternative 2 and Alternative 3. As of April 4th, 2003, there were 1,488 active permits, and as you can see, under Option A, 37% of those permits would be eliminated. Under Option B, 51% of the permits would be eliminated. Under Option C, 19% of the permits would be eliminated, and under Option D, 26% of permits would be considered inactive and eliminated. The third and final action in this amendment deals with income requirements for commercial coastal migratory pelagic permits. Right now, fishermen that are obtaining or renewing their permits must have earned at least 25% of their income or $10,000 from commercial or for-hire fishing in the previous 3 years. This was initially created to ensure that recreational fishermen weren't entering that fishery. The councils are considering 4 separate alternatives for this action. The first is the no action alternative. The second alternative is the South Atlantic Council and the Gulf Council's preferred alternative, and that would eliminate income requirements entirely. The third alternative would allow the councils to recommend the suspension or renewal of requirements. And then the fourth alternative would actually increase the earned income requirement to either 75% or 50% of one's income. We would like to hear your thoughts about the actions and alternatives in this amendment. You can read the full document at this link. You can send us your comments on our online comment form. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us at gulfcouncil@gulfcouncil.org. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and tell us your thoughts.